minutes, so I don't have to start over again for this very important announcement. Auto consultant, salute back to you, my G. At 12:32 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time, it was revealed that FEMA, that you know as the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is preparing for President Trump to make an emergency declaration regarding the coronavirus outbreak. This has already been communicated to major media as they prepare you for what you think is going to be a logical response to this viral outbreak. What I'm going to do for the next however long it takes me to get through this is, instead of just trying to tell you what's going on, I'm going to give you some information that may help you. I'm going to talk about what they're doing as far as declaring this emergency, what the difference is between martial law and a state of emergency. I'm going to talk a little bit about the United States FEMA detainment camps. I'm going to give you an update as of today of what has happened to the entire West Coast of the United States. I'm then going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between face masks and N95 respirators, since the media wants you to believe that you need neither. And then I am going to give you a list of things that you need to have in your home as a home emergency kit if you become quarantined in your home during this outbreak. I hope to cover all 6 of these areas before the hour is up. I don't feel like anyone is actually telling people everything, and that a lot of you are going on misinformation that could be costly. This is not about who knows it first. This is about who knows it at all. I salute all of you all who took the time out to come listen. Please share this information with your friends. I started off by letting you know, in case you haven't heard by now, at 12:32 today, Eastern Standard Time, FEMA announced that they were getting ready for this state of emergency declaration that will be declared by the president. Now, most people don't know what that means. What happens when the president says, I'm declaring a state of emergency? If you have ever read a copy of the Patriot Act, which was then replaced by the Freedom Act, you know that there were certain provisions in those acts that were drawn up after 9/11 that gave the government certain powers that they normally would not have under the Constitution. And that would apply to every living soul on U.S. soil and U.S. territories. That includes the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and any other areas in the Pacific. So let's take a couple of minutes and look at what they're saying. Okay, in case you hadn't heard by now because you have been out living your life as if nothing's going on, the number of deaths in the state of Washington has increased. The governor has already declared an emergency. This virus now has infected the entire West Coast, from Washington state all the way down to the Baja Peninsula of California. So the West Coast, you're compromised. It has also invaded places across the country. And from what they're now saying, it's popping up some of everywhere. I find it interesting that a president who said that 2 days ago this was an attempt by the Democrats to try to scare everybody has now switched up and now wants to declare an emergency. I want to say to Go Hawk 98, of course they're going to act like nothing's going on. In order for him to actually declare the emergency, he should come on nationwide TV and have a talk with everyone. But this president has been anything but presidential. And it's just like the guy who gets the job that he knows he's not qualified for and hope that nothing ever goes wrong. Well, something has gone deadly wrong, and you can see that he's not qualified to be your commander-in-chief. I say this because I too ran for the presidency back in 2016. And every time I see something stupid happen, I always say, y'all didn't want me to be your president. This is what you got instead. So let's go ahead and dig into the facts. They're going to make this declaration shortly. They're trying to get their hands around it. They're trying to make everybody think that there's nothing wrong and to stay calm. They want you to believe that they have everything under control. 2 people died yesterday. That number has now risen to 6 in the state of Washington alone, Washington state. The governor has declared an emergency, but I don't know what that means for you folks out there. We're not talking Washington, D.C. We're talking about the state of Washington. So let's dig into this. What happens when the president declares state of emergency? Well, most folks don't know this, but under the provisions of the Freedom Act, which replaced the Patriot Act, it gives him the ability to suspend certain legal channels that he would have to pursue to get things done. It means that he can make those decisions himself. So the executive summary, FEMA, the powers and the declarations for the state of emergency, the detainment camps, and all of those things that I'm going to talk about would become reality once this declaration is made. So first of all, let's talk about FEMA for a second. Most of you all remember FEMA from the Katrina disaster, where they didn't step in, help anybody. And a lot of people were like, well, what is the purpose of FEMA if it's not to help us out of a situation like this? Well, you have to understand that there was an exercise that happened not too long ago where we found out exactly what the purpose of FEMA is. It is not what we always thought it was. We've always thought it was something that was supposed to help us in the event of a disaster or an emergency. So you have to understand that when they conducted something that many of you may remember as Rex 84. Well, Rex 84 was an exercise that was conducted secretly by the U.S. government and FEMA, where they were actually acting out a scenario of what would happen if there was a great uprising in the United States by the people, and how they will go about maintaining control, even if they had to violate your constitutional rights to make it happen. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, that kind of went right over our heads, even though there was a news agency down in Miami that broke the story. And when the story broke, of course, the government didn't say anything, as they always do. They just kind of let it fly by because they know your attention span is about as short as a 4-year-old. I'm going to take my time with this. I'm not going to rush through it. I need you to get this if you don't get anything else out of what I'm telling you. Rex 84 was actually FEMA's blueprint for martial law in America. And when I talk about what the purpose of, you have to remember who was in power at that time. This was the time of Dick Cheney and George Bush. And they said, we are dangerously close to a situation where if the American people took to the streets in righteous indignation, or if there was another 9/11, a mechanism for martial law needs to be quickly implemented and carried out under Rex 84. Some of you all know what I'm talking about. Rex 84 stood for Readiness Exercise 1984. That means that we have an undisclosed number of concentration camps that were set in operation throughout the United States for the internment of what they call dissidents and potentials who are harmful to the state. Now, here's where it really gets interesting. This actually popped up in 1987 during the Iran-Contra hearings and was subsequently reported. And this was the quote: "These camps are to be operated by FEMA should martial law need to be implemented in the United States, and all it would take is a presidential signature on a proclamation and the Attorney General's signature on a warrant, and then they're in business." And there you have it. The real purpose of FEMA is to not only protect the government, but to be its principal vehicle for martial law. This is why FEMA could not respond immediately to Hurricane Katrina. Humanitarian efforts were no longer part of its job description under the Department of Homeland Security. So let's back up for a second. Many of you all have asked me this question. I'm going to deal with it. What is the difference between martial law and a state of emergency? Listen very carefully. Martial law is the imposition of direct military control over normal civilian functions of government, especially in response to a temporary emergency such as an invasion or a major disaster on occupied territory. Martial law, on the other hand, is the actual assigning of those duties to the military and the utilization of the military with no civilian interjection whatsoever. A state of emergency can be used as a rationale or pretext for suspending your rights and your freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution. That procedure for legality goes different for every country. They might sound similar, but the key point is this. The state of emergency is a constitutionally laid out mechanism. It's in the Constitution, and it's a legally permitted procedure, both, in democracies and in military regimes. Whereas martial law is not laid out in the Constitution, and it is imposed without a legally laid out mechanism. In other words, they can do it any way they choose fit. So for President Trump to declare state of emergency, most folks say, well, cool, then we don't have to worry about martial law. Wrong. Martial law implies that a state of civil disorder or a natural disaster, as they're now calling this coronavirus, is severe enough that local police agencies can't handle security. And so military units, normally the National Guard, is called in to keep the peace and prevent looting and things of that nature. In countries where there's a state of emergency has been declared, this essentially allows the leader, the president or whoever, to assume dictator powers for a particular period of time. And the justice system will be taken over, and anybody who's considered to be a dissident, somebody like myself who's speaking up, is rounded up and imprisoned, and then civil rights are abused and they're tortured and all kind of crazy stuff happens. And this has often been done, you guys, because that's been called a power grab by a particular leader, and the state of emergency might go on for years while the leader solidifies his position. You think that a president that they've just tried to impeach, you think that a president that no one approves of, you think that a president that is obviously unfit for the job and is a racist and everything else that you can call him, but he is, that he would not utilize these powers to remain in power, thereby negating an election until the emergency is over. Would have to worry about being reelected. So understand the difference, that even though they're declaring a state of emergency, for FEMA to make this announcement, about 4 hours ago, that they're preparing, you have to ask yourself, well, what does preparation look like? Well, let's talk a little bit about FEMA and their state of emergency and their detainment camps. And you've all heard this going around before. This is not a conspiracy theory. You can go out yourself and you can find places in your city where it looks like a place is open or it looks like a place is closed. No one goes in, no one goes out, but they've got barbed wire fence up now and they put cameras. I've seen Walmarts like this. As a matter of fact, I actually rolled up on one and I was snooping around when they actually asked me what I was doing. And I told them I wanted to know why the Walmart now had barbed wire around the top, cameras on every corner. The windows were boarded up so you couldn't see on the inside, but the lights were on. And they had turned what used to be the place where you kept all of your gardening and, your mulch bags. That was now a cage. They had turned it into a cage, and they told me I was asking too many questions. So you have to realize that when I say detainment camps, we're not talking about a camp way out in the middle of nowhere. They can pick a place right in your neighborhood. Think about how many Walmarts there are that were suddenly closed. Think about how many military bases that were actually closed. They were converted into potential holding camps, as they say, for dissidents in case of an uprising. You have to remember that when Katrina happened, a lot of folks were wondering, well, how come they didn't come help us? Well, they didn't come help you because that's not their mission. But what they did get a chance to do was have a dry run on how to contain a city and evacuate people and turn them into internees, not evacuees. Let me jump down here real quick. I got some notes here I want to consult. Now, I talked to you about the Rex 84 exercise that a lot of you guys probably didn't hear about, but you also probably never heard about Operation Garden Plot either. Now, that is a NORTHCOM, which is the United States Army and National Guard program under the control of the United States Northern Command. Their job is to provide federal military support during domestic civil disturbances and states of emergency. In other words, soldiers in your neighborhood. One example of the program's implementation was during the 1992 Los Angeles riots when the U.S. Army and the Marine forces were used in conjunction with the California National Guard. Now think about it. It was a different leadership at the time, and black folks was upset along with everybody else, so it was what it was. But they used that as a chance to pass a law, and that law is actually HR 5122, Section 1076 of Public Law. It is called the John Warner Defense Authorization Act of 2007. And they amended Posse Comitatus. If you don't know what Posse Comitatus is the law that says you cannot use our own military against its own people. Well, they amended that. And they have what they now call the Insurrection Act, which also places limits on military deployments. An insurrection is when we rise up sometimes just to get the truth. Again, if you're just joining me, your president, not my president, is the one who is now about to declare a state of emergency because they feel that the coronavirus is now akin to a national disaster. And they're going to use it as an excuse to fire up these plans. And one of those plans is the detainment camps. They started building them. They authorized them. Attorney General John Ashcroft authorized this back in 2002. So they've been building them ever since. In October 2006, the Military Commissions Act passed by Congress applies to non-U.S. citizens and permits individuals labeled as enemy combatants to be imprisoned indefinitely and without charge. If they want to quarantine you to your home because of this virus and you decide that you don't want to go along with it, then they can label you an enemy combatant. If you speak out against the efforts of the government as they try to get control of this thing, they can label you an enemy combatant and you're on your way to Camp FEMA. Now, what happens in those camps? Well, we don't know. The stated purpose is little's been said about the purpose of the detainment camps, but when official comment has been made, it has stated that the camps are for temporary detainment of illegal immigrants. Right. Listen, as far as FEMA is concerned, if you want to go out and look up Executive Order 12127, which is the FEMA act that was put out, if you want to go up and look up the FEMA Act of April 1, 2007, there's plenty of information out there. They didn't hide it. They just didn't make a whole lot of noise about it. So understand that with the difference between martial law and the difference between state of emergency, one normally leads to the other, and that FEMA is the law enforcement agency that would make that happen. Now notice you don't hear anything from the CDC. You don't hear anything from Health and Human Services because guess what? They now all fall under that umbrella in this particular situation. So I want to make you aware that if you think for 2 seconds that they are going to allow you to do as you please in this country, as we've always done under the Constitution, and the president has exercised these emergency powers, then you need to understand the gravity of some of the things that they've been putting into place. But why do you think they built these camps? Why do you think they bought all the ammo and stopped the stores from selling ammo? Excuse me 1 second. What are we doing here? Okay. Why? All right, cool. No, we're not going to do that today. I'm going to get this information out one way or the other. All right, let's get to some stuff that can help us. So we already know that they have no problem throwing us in concentration camps. We already know for a fact that they're going to lie to us about what's going on. The death toll is rising here within the United States. It was 2 yesterday. Now they're saying it's 6 today, and it just seems to keep doubling. Sounds familiar, right? But let's talk about what you can do to protect yourself because there's a lot of misinformation going on out there. I know a lot of folks have gone out and tried to find these masks right here. You can see that this is a 3M N95 rated surgical mask, meaning that it's rated to screen out 95% of non-oil-based particulates in the air. And in case you haven't been keeping up with the latest information on COVID-19, the CDC and the World Health Organization has pretty much determined that this particular virus, even though it started with bats, it actually migrated to another creature, and I can't even pronounce the name. It looks like an armadillo that is valued worldwide because they say that its hide has health healing potential. So it goes everywhere, and that somehow it made the jump to humans. We don't care where it came from. It's here now. So let's deal with it. Even though they're trying to make it seem like they've got things under control, the vice president went to the 3M plant, and this is made by 3M, and he went there to Minnesota today as if that's going to help them make more masks. You have to remember who Vice President Pence is. This is the same man that when HIV was devastating the state of Indiana and they wanted to give free needles to substance abusers so that they wouldn't spread HIV, he wouldn't sign the bill. And it was only after more people had died that he finally relented. And because he did sign the bill, they were able to reduce HIV deaths in his state significantly. So this is not some health guru. He has been appointed to be the fall guy. He is the fall guy, and he don't give a damn about you or me. We're talking about the home of the Ku Klux Klan. Y'all better holler at me. So I don't care about what they trying to do, but if you try to go out and find one of these particular masks right here, and you've seen me wearing these before, they can tell you that you don't need one, but let me explain something to you guys. I've been wearing these on airplanes where people have been coughing, sneezing, and I bought into the BS for a couple of seconds, and I took it off, and immediately I could feel my nose tingling. I could feel my throat getting itchy. I put them back on, and it works. As a matter of fact, remember, this right here is not so much to protect people from you, but also to protect things from easily accessing your nostrils and your mouth. Doesn't cover your eyes, okay? But it will protect you in some instance from you just randomly breathing in particulates that someone has coughed, that someone has sneezed into the air. Don't just go out there with nothing. Something is better than nothing. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But this is a mask, okay? Now, on the other hand, this is a respirator. A respirator is different, okay? Because remember, if you've ever been to the hospital, they always want to put you on the respirator. The respirator helps you to breathe. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between masks and respirators. OK, first of all, they are not something that you buy on eBay because they look cute. You want to get you one of these because of what it does and where you're going to be and how much of a threat you think you're going to face. And right now they're in such high demand. I went looking online today and the prices are ridiculous. I saw a mask that I know sells for about $17. They want $399 for it. Do you all remember the movie, what was it called? Deep Impact. And there was a scene where Morgan Freeman was the president, and he went on TV and he said that as of right now, I am freezing all prices. What a loaf of bread costs you today, it will cost you tomorrow. I will not allow price gouging. You remember that? If we had a real president, he'd be on TV right now, says, right now, I am ordering a freeze on prices on all of the masks and all of the respirators, but he doesn't care. So folks are doing whatever they want. They're charging an arm and a leg and your son just for you to have a piece of protection. Now, remember, these are personal protective equipment that's used to protect the wearer, that's you, from liquid and airborne particles contaminating your face. But they're only one part of an infection control strategy. You have to have a strategy. Mine is very, very deep. Not only do I protect my face, I don't touch anything. I'm constantly washing my hands. I don't want to shake your hand. I'm not touching the escalator, the railing on the escalator. I'm not pushing the button on the elevator. If I don't have something to separate me from those surfaces, I'm not touching them. I don't want you to, we're not sharing that blunt right now. We're not going to, no, you can't have a sip of my, remember, the only way this can get to you is you have to leave a door open. And yes, you do have to be fitted for these masks to work appropriately. Some of you all have them. Some of you all have seen me wearing some of the more expensive masks like this one here, which is what we call a Scalar mask, which actually is in 100 rated, and it protects everything here, including my ears and so forth. So, air goes in through here too. There's always a way in. Okay. You want to make sure that a face mask is disposable. You don't want to keep it for forever. Don't go for this, oh, you can wash it. Don't. It's a disposable device that creates a physical barrier between the mouth and the nose of the wearer and any potential contaminants in your immediate environment. These are face masks that I'm talking about. Face masks are not to be shared. Okay. They can come with or without a face shield. And then there's different grades of them. So what I need you to understand, if you're going to get a mask, the mask is temporary. The mask will give you some form of obvious contaminant. No one spits on you, okay? Or if there's something in the air, an N95 will screen out 95% of that, but you're still breathing the air. And if the virus mutates to the point where it becomes submolecular, it can still get through and it can still get to you. Now, respirators are a completely different story, okay? An N95 respirator is a device designed to achieve a very close facial fit and very efficient filtration of everything. The N95 designation means that when a subject, at least 95%, and I'm talking 0.3 microns, cannot get through if it's properly fitted. The filtration capabilities of the N95 respirator exceeds those of all face masks. However, even a properly fitted N95 respirator does not completely eliminate the risk of illness or death. Only you getting away from the situation is going to save your life. N95 respirators are not designed for children or people with facial hair. If you notice, I'm always clean shaven. Now, this is something we learned in the military, and it's kind of strange that I'm saying this now because it's funny the things that they teach you, and now today it's all coming back to me. When we would go into the gas chamber, and everybody goes to the gas chamber, you're gonna get gas when you're in basic training. They give you your gas mask. They show you how to get a good seal and make sure your filters are right and how to put it on and how to tighten it up. They showed us all of that, and of course there was one or two cats that wasn't paying attention, and they told us make sure you're clean shaven. And make sure you're not sweating. And we were like, what does that mean? And then we went into this chamber and they turned on the gas. And immediately you saw some people who they were having problems. Or it was starting to burn the skin. And they were trying to put their hands against the mask, but they didn't follow the proper protocol. So the chemicals that they put into the gas chamber effectively got to them. I'm not going to talk about what other things they did to us in the gas chamber, but that showed me how to actually wear my mask correctly, make sure I had a good seal, make sure my eyes were covered, and make sure my filters were clean. That's what we call either a C17 or M40 or M50. That is a military grade mask. That's what you all saw me this morning on my little post I put up at 3 a.m. when I woke up and remembered, you know what? You still got your mask, bruh. So that being said, you can't get one of those. And if you do, I'm gonna wonder how you got it because they're gonna cost you an arm and a leg. But here on the streets, there are some that are comparable. We're talking respirators now. Make sure you can't have a beard and put this on and think that it's going to protect you. It has to be a good seal all the way around the skin. It has to be a good seal all the way around so that nothing can get in. So make sure if you're going to be out and about, a respirator that you can breathe through, get yourself a respirator. Okay. Now the FDA, now this came straight from the FDA. I reached out to the FDA because I wanted to find out, look, can y'all recommend to me what I should be getting if I'm a civilian? And they were very forthcoming with the information. And then the FDA has cleared certain filtering face piece respirators for use by the general public. Now, to work as expected, as I told you, you got to get the right size and you have to make sure it fits. You want to check for proper fit. You should put on your respirator, adjust the straps so it fits tight but comfortable on your face. There are even some masks that will allow you to wear your glasses. Now, because 3M makes the best mask on earth, the 3M particulate respirator, the 8670, this one right here, and this is without the filters. Hold on, let me grab the filters. This is what the filters look like. So you don't just get the mask. You need the mask. Put the filter on. Now these filters, you have to make sure you get the right ones. You get the filters and the mask. Make sure you get it on nice and tight. Make sure you got a good seal. Try it. When you do that, what's going to happen is when you pull in, it should get tight. If you can go and you feel air coming from anywhere, tighten it up some more. Okay? Good seal. You got a good seal. You got fresh filters. You got an N95 or an N100. You're going to be okay. Stop letting them scare you with this misinformation about you don't need no mask. But when you hear them say that, listen to what they say behind it. They say you don't need a mask, because you got to wash your hands and don't touch your face. Okay, stupid. We know that. But don't tell me I don't need a mask. And stop telling my people they don't need this. These devices I'm talking about are not for occupational use. Now, if you work in a hospital, it's a different level, okay? Because most N95 respirators are manufactured for use in construction and other industrial type jobs that expose workers to dust and small particles. And that's regulated by the National Personal Protective Technology Laboratory, better known as NPPTL, and in the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, which you all know as NIOSH or OSHA, which is part of the CDC. These products are labeled for occupational use. However, some N95 respirators are intended for use in healthcare settings. And here's where you really want to pay attention. Specifically, single use, disposable, respiratory protective devices used and worn by healthcare personnel during procedures. So when they're doing operations, when they're transferring microorganisms, when they're dealing, I'm reading some of these comments. You know, I'm gonna tell you like this, and I'm gonna say this out loud. You keep that attitude. You keep that same energy when they gave you the guidelines, because they're the same ones that they're using to stay alive. And when it hits you, you keep that same energy, because they're basically saying the same thing to you. It's up to you to take the information that I'm giving and make something happen with it. But I feel you. Sometimes I feel the same way. But I'm passing on information that they're not talking about on TV. This is what they should be talking about, instead of us talking about who's running in the election, when there may not be an election, since they now declared a state of emergency. And that state of emergency, I'm telling you guys, is going to lead to a thing that you all are not prepared for. I don't care who's on this live. You are not prepared for martial law. You're too opinionated. You got too much backbone. You think you can't be made to do anything. And that is why they're prepared to unleash the full force of the military on you. And as a soldier, I will let you know, you all are not prepared for that level of control. You're either going to end up shot, dead, sick, or thrown into a containment that you will never get out of until they get rid of you. Now, at the end of the day, I'm trying to help you, because I'm straight. I don't want to be the only one here, people. I need all my peoples with me. So let's keep it moving. So like I said, the ones that are used in healthcare settings are a little bit different. Okay. And you may have a hard time trying to find some of those. I think they're in very high demand. There are some precautions. If you have a respiratory or a cardiac condition or other medical conditions that make breathing difficult, you might want to check with your healthcare provider before using an N95 respirator, because the N95 respirator can make it more difficult for you to breathe. I'm not going to lie. When I first started wearing my mask, I sounded like Darth Vader on the plane. I'm sitting there because I was trying too hard to breathe. Just relax and breathe. You'll be all right. If you're breathing too hard, you're going to feel the seal tightening every time. And if you're claustrophobic, you're really in for it. You know, one of the things that we do in the military is we wear what's called a mission op posture suit, which is actually what we call a MOP suit. And once you put that whole suit on and you put on the whole mask and the gloves and the boots and the whole 9 yards, and then they tell you that you got to stay in it for 4 to 5 hours, some people lose it, because they're contained, they're claustrophobic, they can't take it. Well, all we're telling you right now is you need to get into something that's going to stop your nose, your mouth, your eyes, and your ears. from being susceptible to airborne particulates, that you have to protect your hands and don't touch your hands to your mouth. You'd be surprised how many times you touch your hands to your mouth without even thinking about it. I want to thank everybody for just tuning in. We're talking about the president declaring a state of emergency that could possibly lead to martial law. FEMA has been put on alert to get ready, and it's interesting because they've been getting ready for a minute. And now I'm talking about the difference between respirators and masks. Please don't go anywhere. I am going to actually give you a list of what you need to have in your home as an emergency kit if you are quarantined during this particular outbreak. The death toll in Washington state is now up to 6 and counting. And they've actually found out that one of the people that died didn't tell anybody that they had anything and didn't come tell any, didn't do a thing. We don't know who they talked to, where they've been, what they've been doing, and then they dropped dead. So the party is on and popping right about now. So remember the difference between a respirator and a mask. Don't go out here and fall for this BS with these people putting up, I'm going to sell you a mask. You don't need a mask at this point. You need a respirator. Now, they will cost you if you go online right now, but it's better to have it and need it than to need it and not have it. Now, let's talk about this emergency kit. Now, let's think about it. You're going to be in your home. They've told you can't come out. They have told you to work from home. They are canceling events all over the place that require people to gather. They are asking people to alter their lifestyles. Now, just like in China, if push comes to shove, they will confine you to your home. Think about it right now. If you couldn't leave your home right now for 2 weeks, do you have everything you need in your home right now that you could be comfortable and survive for 2 weeks? So let's go down the list of some things that you are going to need. Okay, because as this novel coronavirus spreads, voluntary or involuntary home quarantines are going to become the order. And hundreds of people, maybe thousands in the US and around the world are already looking at this possibility. They're talking 14 to 28 days. So if you're quarantined in your home, I'm telling you, there's certain supplies you want to stock up on, and I'm going to go down the list real quick and just think about what you got. This is not to make you panic. It's to make you smart. If you got to hit the store, hit the store. Don't sit around and let me tell you something real quick before I get into this. I'm sick and tired of my own people who do nothing but want to debate about something when what we're trying to do is move the agenda forward. Who cares? So what if you think you're right? How does that profit us? How does that help us? Is your life so jacked up that you just feel you got to be right? Okay, you're right. Now what? That don't help us. And I'm not the platform for that. I can't stand that anymore. That's why when I come on, I don't talk to certain people. You want to debate with somebody? You go find somebody who want to sit down and go back and forth with you. I'm here trying to save my people. I don't give a fuck about you because your attitude is backwards. And that's real talk. And I'll say that to your face. Y'all done got me hot up in here. Now, let's go down the list of what you need in the crib. First of all, you should have 14 days, a 14-day supply of food for everyone in your house. You want to focus on dry and canned goods that are easy to prepare. I'm not telling you to go out and eat a bunch of stuff that you don't eat. I'm trying to tell you how to stay alive, because if you've never been in a situation where your resources dry up, we are all civilized people until all of our stuff starts disappearing. And then we turn into what we truly are. We turn into animals. We turn into cannibals. We turn into murderers. We turn into thieves. We turn into liars. We turn into manipulators. We turn into the worst creature you can imagine when we can't get the basics that we need to survive. They are using welding torches, sealing people inside of their apartments in China. Would you want to be sealed inside of your house without everything that you need to survive, and then somebody come open that up 14 days later? I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to confront the thing that's going to come out of it. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has said that we recommend you stock up enough food and water for 2 weeks. Really? But they're not telling you how much. They're just saying stock up. I'm going to tell you, keep at least a gallon of water a day for each person and your pet in your home. I'm going to say it again. You want at least a gallon of water a day So if you got 5 people in your house, you need 5 gallons a day. Now you take the 5 and multiply it times 14. You need to get to buying some water. Especially if you like me, I only drink very high pH level. I don't alkaline water. I don't drink out the tap because I don't want to be dumbed down by fluoride, and I don't want the lead poisoning. So I make sure I keep my alkaline high. So now I got to go out and buy every case of this I can find. Make sure you keep at least a gallon of water for each person and pet in your home. Okay. Next thing you want to do, now if your water is untreated, you can buy some water purification tablets. Okay. And then that makes your water safe to drink. The next thing you want to do is make sure you have hygiene products like soap and hand sanitizer and toilet paper and tissues and feminine care products and diapers and things like that. Make sure you got enough of that. Make sure, don't sit there and assume, don't find out at the last moment. It sounds simple. Okay, it sounds simple, but it's not so much. Make sure you got hand soap and sanitizer in your quarantine kit. I'm calling it the quarantine kit. If you have to take medication, and this is already starting to happen, make sure you got a 30-day supply of your prescription medicines. Go to the pharmacy today and say, look, because right now they understand. Say, look, I'm not here for the refill, bro. I need you to hook me up. I need to have enough to last me for 30 days because I won't be coming back. Okay. They have already found out that COVID-19, people who have high blood pressure are very susceptible to this. Okay. Now you should have 30 days, even if you're going to be there for 14. Remember, they can extend it out. Second is maintain a first aid kit with all the supplies you need to treat common injuries. You got a first aid kit in your house right now, right? Do you? If you don't, now's the time to go out and get one. You should have an at-home first aid kit to treat common injuries for cuts, scrapes, swelling, sprains, strains, and all of that stuff, okay? If your kit got things like antibiotic ointment packs and gauze and bandages and thermometers and scissors and tweezers and an emergency blanket, then you good. But if you don't, go out and get it. Take note of all the other medical supplies you might need, such as contact lenses, hearing aid batteries, and make sure you have over-the-counter medicines like pain relievers and cough and cold medicines. Go out and get that stuff today. Do not wait until they tell you can't leave your house anymore. Okay? Here's something that's real important. Make sure you have copies of your health records. Make sure somewhere in your house you got a copy of your health records, because again, when it comes down to figuring out who's who, one of the things I haven't told you about is that if they declare martial law, and they can do it in a state of emergency, they can cut off the internet. And we will have no way to communicate. Let that sink in for a minute. You won't have me to ignore. He has the ability to suspend all communications. You see, under the Stafford Act, it was written that they could terminate phone lines. This was back in the day before the invention of the internet. But this is considered a form of communication. So it extends to them cutting off the internet. So if the internet goes away and the phones are cut off because they don't want you spreading no false information or getting out there or trying to find a way to escape or any of those things, then all of a sudden, how are you going to prove that you're in good health? How are they going to know that, that he doesn't have COVID-19? He has this, that, and the third, because I went to the doctor right before y'all stuck us in here and I got the medical records. Get yourself a copy of your medical records, your children's medical records. Now, let's talk about your mental health. I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but when you're cooped up in the crib, you can suffer a thing called cabin fever. And that is where the other person in the house done got on your last damn nerve and you murder their ass. And we opened up your house and everybody in there done got killed because somebody couldn't take it no more. So make sure that you have things like books, board games, card games. If they plan to get the TV game, Xbox, whatever they play, make sure whatever it is that you have to keep your mind occupied, you got that in there also. Because if not, the human mind will begin to play tricks on you. Believe it or not, that's a very short list of things that I just gave you. It's not a lot. It just requires a little bit of common sense and some of you going out and getting those things in advance. It does look like we're moving toward this particular type of situation here in the United States. I wanted to share that with you all, that because the president is preparing to declare a state of emergency based on the spreading of the coronavirus, that he now is in the position to declare martial law because y'all not going to cooperate. I will add one more thing. Make sure that if you have weapons, you have ammo, and someone in the house is properly trained on how to use those weapons in the house. Because if they institute martial law in the United States, I guarantee you it won't go down like it does in China. China is a communist regime. They already have an ironclad rule of law. And the people know that, if you say the wrong thing, you're going to disappear. But the United States, oh, no. Because we believe in, the First Amendment. We got the right to say what we want. We believe in the Second Amendment. We got the right to bear arms. We believe in all these rights that become suspended once the military is placed on your street. Becomes suspended once martial law is declared. Becomes suspended in a state of emergency. So once that happens, that's when all the fussing and fighting gonna start. Y'all don't have to listen to me. I tried to tell y'all about this a month ago. Damn, almost 2 months ago now. And well, here we are. So that's really what I wanted to bring to your attention. If you haven't heard, let me be the one to bring the word to you. Everybody else, go out and do your research. Please pay close attention. There's a crazy man in the White House right now. And what he's doing, in so many words, is he's telling y'all, he don't give a damn about y'all. And since he don't give a damn about y'all, what's going to end up happening? Here's his way to show you for real. He said he was going to be the boss. He is the boss. And right now, he's going to flip the switch and time's up. This is as of 5:19 Eastern Standard Time. I have given y'all some information to move out on. Go get your kits together. Pay attention to the rules. Understand the difference between martial law and a state of emergency. Familiarize yourself with Rex 84. And then also understand that FEMA is not here to help you. FEMA is the law enforcement agency that would operate the camps under martial law should it be implemented in the United States. And all it takes is a presidential signature on a proclamation and the attorney general's signature on a warrant, and we are in business. And if you don't think he ain't gonna sign that, you got another thing coming. Stay safe, stay alert, stay alive. If you have direct questions, hit me in my DM. This is not a segregated live. My profile is wide open. Any and everybody has seen it, and I'm pretty sure the government's seen it too. So let us move on as one, and I hope to see y'all on what I call the bright side, the flip side. Y'all know how it gets down. I'll talk to you later. Stay blessed, stay powerful. Shalom, my people.